Scenes from Wembley Stadium there, and more of that later. Welcome to the AFC Wimbledon 2015-2016 season roundup. The club had made several new signings, including Paul Robinson, Tom Elliott, Jonathan Meads, the promising Andy Barcham, and Lyle Taylor, formerly of Falkirk and Partick Thistle. The opening match here is the home friendly with Millwall.
Goal scorer for the Dons on his home debut, number 33, Lyle Taylor.
Lyle Taylor's early goal cancelled out in the dying seconds by Millwall's Nelson. In other friendlies, a good draw with Premier League Watford and a 3-1 win at Terry Brown's Basingstoke Town, thanks to a late Lyle Taylor hat-trick. A 1-1 draw with Kingstonian and a 3-1 win over Gary Johnson's newly relegated Cheltenham Town wind up the friendly programme, the Dons unbeaten in 5 games. The league programme opens at home to Plymouth Argyle, a fixture that no home side had won since Wimbledon's return to the Football League. And so the strange sequence continued. First blood to Argyle. The League Cup had yet again given the Dons an away fixture at the palatial and near empty Cardiff City Stadium. Dons unlucky in South Wales, hitting the woodwork late on but losing to a single goal. In West Sussex, Adebayo Akinfenwa and Andy Barcham claimed 2 second-half goals to overcome Crawley Town at the Broadfield Stadium prior to the visit of Cambridge United. Exact reverse of the Crawley game, the Dons going down 2-1 despite being a goal up at half time, but a decent point up at Carlisle United. Andy Barcham giving Wimbledon a half time lead there. Now it's Exeter City with no Jamie Curitan to worry about this time. We were beaten fair and square, so said City boss Paul Tisdale after the game. A goal from Aziz with only 8 minutes on the clock remaining, winning that one. And another Devon club now, Plymouth Argyle, returning after just over 3 weeks since their last visit, this time in the Johnston's Paint Trophy. The Dons toss away a 2-goal lead as Argyle progress to the next round, a second blood to Argyle. Martin Shaw at Mansfield Town supplied the footage for the game at Field Mill, or the One Call Stadium as it is called these days, but there was no soundtrack, so as they used to say in the old days, until sound is resumed, here is some music. Decent result, but a stupid straight red for Lyle Taylor deep into stoppage time, meaning an automatic 3-match ban, starting with the game at Yeovil Town. 2 points wasted as the goal frame twice comes to the aid of the Glovers. Akinfenwa's late goal earning the point. Notts County, after losing 3 of their last 4 games in League One last season, were relegated to League Two and make their first appearance at Kings Meadow. Danny Borman and Adebayo Akinfenwa's very late goals finishing off Notts County. Referee Andy Davies dishing out 6 yellow cards in that game. Off to Kenilworth Road now to face Luton Town, a team the Dons did beat last season with a goal from Matt Tubbs. Osborne's red card leaving the Dons to play all of the second half with 10 men, and they buckle in the last 11 minutes by 2-0. Northampton Town had enjoyed a good run of results at Kingsmeadow, and they arrived in 8th place, having just drawn with 3rd place Leyton Orient. The Cobblers leaving Kingsmeadow undefeated again, just that first half goal from Adebayo Aziz to cheer. After winning the 2015 conference title, pipping Bristol Rovers by a single point, the Bees were back in town, and they're returning to Kingsmeadow after a 2-year stint in non-league football. Sean Riggs securing the game after the Barnet keeper went on an excursion there, leaving his side still looking for their first away point of the season. The Dons had a miserable recent record when playing Oxford United, just 2 goalless draws and 6 defeats in 8 meetings. Another forgettable trip to the Kassam Stadium, Oxford winning the game with 10 minutes remaining, and Morecambe arrived at Kings Meadow in 12th place, 2 above the Dons. Seven yellow cards in what was a right Del Boy performance. It was lovely jubbly for Morecambe, while the Dons ended up as plonkers. So let's check the league table. At Wimbledon in 16th place, and looking at this stage, likely to repeat the last few seasons at the wrong end. At the top is Plymouth Argyle on 29 points, 3 ahead of Portsmouth, who had only lost once so far, and Oxford United in the other automatic spot. At the wrong end, it's Dagenham and Redbridge and Newport County, with Yeovil Town just a point from safety. James Shea's injury brings Cardiff City loanee Ben Wilson to the Dons, and despite conceding 3 goals at Accrington Stanley, he ends up on the winning side at a ground where points have been hard to come by. And there's another away win, this time at York City, with goals from Aziz, Taylor and Elliott in a 3-1 win, before the arrival of Hartlepool United at Kings Meadow. No repeat of last season's 2-1 reverse at the hands of the Pool, as they are overcome by 2 early goals from Kennedy and Taylor. And with the Dons on a winning streak, it was a good time to kick off their FA Cup campaign against former conference opponents Forest Green Rovers in round 1. You can just about hear the Dons commercial chief Ivor Heller on the soundtrack saying "Oh no" shortly before Rovers struck the winner 3 minutes into added time. Oh no indeed, and no repeat of last season's adventure that brought Liverpool to Kingsmeadow, Wimbledon now being dumped out of all 3 major tournaments at the first hurdle. So it was back to reality at Fratton Park, to a setting befitting the Premier League for this Sunday game. Near 16,000 crowd are treated to a dreary 90 minutes, no goals and just one booking, Jake Reeves, and that in added time. The Dons now are in 13th place and had an opportunity to climb the table against 10th place Wycombe Wanderers.
On 6 additional minutes at the end of the game. 6 minutes in overtime. 6 minutes.
Aziz coming to the rescue with an equaliser in injury time. Dagenham and Redbridge were only off the bottom on goal difference and had recorded 1 victory so far in 2015-16. Jamie Curitan, so often a thorn in the Don's side, again does the damage with his 80th minute winner, and there's just a draw at 10-man Leyton Orient. Adebayo Akinfenwa netting an equaliser 10 minutes from the end there. With the Dons now on something of a ragged run, the next opposition was 18th place Stevenage, with only one away win to their name all season. The bad run continuing as the Dons throw away a half-time lead and trip up against Stevenage, with Barry Fuller missing his only game of the season due to suspension. Now with James Shea back in goal, it's the second visit to South Wales. This time it's Newport County, 7 points off the drop zone at Rodney Parade. Lyle Taylor's second half double, salvaging a point for the Dons in this proverbial game of two halves. County were dominant in the first half but faded away in the second and were lucky in the end to save a point. The league table on Christmas Day showed Plymouth Argyle on top, with Oxford United and Northampton Town in the other two automatic spots. At the bottom, Dagenham and Redbridge and Yeovil Town have just 13 points apiece, with York City just above the drop zone on 15. AFC Wimbledon have moved up slightly since the last time we looked. They've gone from 16th to 14th, before facing bogey side Bristol Rovers at Kingsmeadow on Boxing Day. The game wrecked by referee Keith Hill, who incorrectly red-carded Paul Robinson with the game only 4 minutes old, a decision that was later rescinded. Darrell Clark, the Rovers manager, described the match as a boring game, while Neil Ardley speculated that the Dons would have won with 11 men. In any event, the goalless draw left Wimbledon without a win in 7 games, so it was time for a change at a ground that the Dons usually fared badly, St James's Park, Exeter. Tom Elliott and Lyle Taylor scoring first half goals, securing the Dons' first ever win at Exeter City since their reform, and revenge at the Abbey for that earlier home defeat as Wimbledon scored 3 second half goals to win 4-1. The Carlisle United home match is called off due to the would-be visitors' FA Cup commitment, so the Dons take an unexpected 2-week break before entertaining Mansfield Town. It's a match that contains a unique event. Unbelievable. Where did you ever see a player score a goal, have it chalked off, only to score a virtually identical goal a minute later? Unreal. And that Taylor equaliser unsettled the visitors, who crashed to further goals from Meads and Aziz after Green had given the Stags a half-time lead. And a bad December run had now given way to a winning January streak, which became 4 on the trot after the trip to Notts County. Stunning goal by Tom Elliott and the late second from Andy Barcham taking the points in a 2-0 win at Meadow Lane. 13 away matches had yielded just 6 points for next up Yeovil Town, who were in 22nd place out of the drop zone only on goal difference. Wimbledon undone with Jack Compton's hat-trick for the Glovers. The Dons have another 2-week break as the next opponents, Bristol Rovers, are also involved in the FA Cup. The next game is at home to Luton Town, but beforehand there's an interesting FA Youth Cup tie at Kings Meadow against mighty Chelsea. A brave performance from the young Dons, losing to the eventual winners in front of a splendid crowd of nearly 3,500. The Dons keeper James Shea, incidentally, has a winner's medal playing for Arsenal in the 2009 final. Now the first team are back on duty, and it's that return match with Luton Town. The Dons exacting revenge on the Hatters for that earlier 2-0 defeat, chalking up their best win of the season. Luton's Jack Marriott scoring for both sides, incidentally, and Loney Kelly Roos making his debut in the Wimbledon goal. Due to a mix-up at Barnet, our cameraman was declined access to the TV gantry and had to film in pouring rain from this secondary position. Stevens' late goal for Barnet, not enough for the Bees, as the Dons pick up a useful 3 points at the Hive prior to taking on Carlisle United in the rearranged fixture.
Substitution for replacing number 17, Nathaniel Skillard. As number 13, Dan Hanford.
Robinson scoring the only goal against Carlisle United after their keeper Gillespie is red carded. The result elevates the Dons to 5th in the table before the home match against bogey side Oxford United.
I forgot the goal. Oh. They've scored, haven't they? Nearly was losing his heart.
Number 17, Andy Barton.
The Oxford curse striking again, winning 2-1, their first goal from ex-Don Danny Hilton. At table-topping Northampton, though, a credible draw thanks to Lyle Taylor's second-half equaliser, and completing a trio of tough games is the home match with Accrington Stanley, the Dons in 8th, Stanley in 4th. What's going on here is that Accrington Stanley are unhappy with the referee for chalking off their goal, but he'd blown for half time prior to the ball entering the net. Stanley's Etheridge picking up a red card 3 minutes from time in this goalless draw. Referee Dean Whitehouse also dishing out 6 yellows in that match. And now it's the rearranged match at Bristol Rovers, where the Dons had lost on every visit since returning to the league. John Meade's goal was all the travelling fans had to cheer about in a 3-1 defeat. Adebayo Akinfenwa earning a red card in stoppage time for an off-camera incident, and at Morecambe another Don, Ryan Sweeney this time, also earns a straight red. George Frankham scoring on 90 minutes to earn some pride in a 2-1 loss. It was hoped to stop the rot against 23rd place York City, who were 7 points from safety. York City despondent after a spectacular injury time winner from Jake Reeves. The table now looks like this. Northampton Town have a huge 11-point lead at the top. Oxford United and Bristol Rovers taking up second and third place respectively, with Plymouth Argyle and Accrington Stanley breathing down their necks. Dagenham and Redbridge and York City now in deep trouble at the bottom. Stevenage on 34 points, Hartlepool United with 36, making up the bottom four. The Dons in ninth place were still hopeful of reaching the playoffs. But no joy at Hartlepool United, despite having 54% of the play and 10 shots on goal to the home side's 4. Hartlepool winning by a single goal for the second successive season. Despite losing 3 of the last 4, the Dons were still in ninth place, the playoffs within easy reach as they embarked on a 5-match winning run, beginning at Wycombe Wanderers. A Lyle Taylor double taking the match 2-1, and there was a similar score in the Dons' favour at Home Park. Persistent Adebayo Akinfenwa winning the game with that speculative header 2 minutes from time. The fixture yet again failing to produce a home team win. The Dons are now in 7th place, a position they would not relinquish. These two sides would meet once more before the season was over. Now, the last time Crawley Town came to Kings Meadow for a league match, it was in October 2011 when they embarrassed the Dons 5-2, but not this time. Just Robinson's winner 7 minutes from the end, worthy of note in an otherwise dull game. Time now for the District Line derby. The last for now, as the Daggers were doomed to relegation. Dons fans taunting the Dagenham faithful by singing "You're Playing Sutton Next Year" to the tune of Blue Moon, unaware that AFC Wimbledon would also have to play them. Lyle Taylor scoring a goal in each half to maintain the Dons' playoff spot. Next it's Leyton Orient at home, and a visit from one of AFC Wimbledon's most revered sons, Sammy Moore, now in Orient's colours. Lyle Taylor's early goal the difference between the sides. Northampton are crowned champions, with Accrington Stanley and Oxford United in the other two automatic spots, with Bristol Rovers, Plymouth Argyle and Portsmouth in the playoff places with the Dons. York City and Dagenham and Redbridge were now cut adrift at the foot of the table, destined for a stint in non-league football. If AFC Wimbledon could beat Portsmouth, a playoff place would be assured. Portsmouth win guaranteeing them the playoff place, the Dons having to wait until the away fixture at Stevenage, needing to match or better Cambridge United's result, and in the end the Dons' 0-0 draw was good enough, as Cambridge could also only draw at home to Plymouth Argyle. The Newport game was now meaningless and several team changes took effect, including a returning goal for James Shea. Toyosi Olusanya, I hope I've said that right, scoring the only goal in his only appearance. The Dons finishing with 75 points, their highest league tally as AFC Wimbledon. Accrington Stanley had lost out on automatic promotion after being held 0-0 at home to Stevenage, Bristol Rovers swooping to take their place. The Leyton Orient were the unlucky team in 8th, just missing out, and Dagenham and York had both been occupying the bottom 2 places for some time and had appointments in the National League. So, while Portsmouth played Plymouth Argyle in one playoff, the Dons had to encounter Accrington Stanley in the other. A great time for Tom Beer to score his only goal of the campaign, 3 minutes into added time. Try as we might, we could not get any footage from Accrington for the second leg, and things looked bleak on the hour up there as Stanley went 2-0 ahead, 2-1 on aggregate, before Adebayo Akinfenwa levelled the tie on 68 minutes, taking the game into extra time and setting up Lyle Taylor to make it 2-2 on the night, allowing Wimbledon to advance to Wembley Stadium to face Plymouth Argyle, victors over Portsmouth in the other playoff semi. Compared to the Dons, Argyle had the better setup, the stronger squad, that super stadium and a massive fan base, all of which would grace Football League One. So there could be only one outcome. Sit back and enjoy the highlights from a memorable day out at the National Stadium, beginning with Master of Ceremony Mikey T of WDON.
Talking of history, very sensational.
Today's Commonwealth and the Match Award.
Fantastic scenes at the final whistle as Lyle Taylor and Adebayo Ekinfenwa's goals ensure it's the Dons' day as they advance to Football League One to face former Premier League heavyweights like Sheffield United, Coventry City and Bolton Wanderers. There's Ivor Heller enjoying the moment seen from the giant Wembley screens. Just time for the matter of the cup to be presented, and then it's a break before the club embark on their first third tier experience.